Hey, good afternoon, people. Thank you very much for coming on today for Pure UVC's webinar, Pure UVC for Higher Education. This is our encore performance of this webinar. We first conducted it last week in terms of providing different UVC solutions to reopening and adding to the infrastructure of institutions of higher education. At any point, please use the Q&A module that's included here in Zoom to write down any questions. We will move through and have time for Q&A at the end. I will get to every question, so please at any time feel free to use that module. Otherwise, let's dive in. So my name is Dan Litvin. I'm the head of marketing here at Pure UVC. Here I'm responsible for marketing, educational initiatives, and internal systems. And my background is a technical one. I have a BS in electrical engineering from Rutgers University, a bachelor's of science there, not a fake degree. Thank you very much. And so this does come from that scientific background, and hopefully I'll be able to explain everything as clearly as possible. Again, please, please, please add questions in that Q&A. So in today's webinar, what we'll be talking about is a very brief overview of UV technology. If you want to learn more about UV technology, especially how UV can be used for disinfection purposes, we have another webinar that we conduct every other week. The next one is actually tomorrow, called Intro to UVC, where we discuss that in more detail. And on our website, we have a recording of a previous webinar called A Deep Dive into UVC Technology, where I go very much head over heels into the deep end in terms of this technology, so you can learn more there. From there, we'll go into our Intro to Pure UVC facility-wide UV disinfection systems, just an overview of what the system we're talking about looks like. And then the interesting part, we talk about different solutions for different spaces inside your facilities. We'll end off with some very broad sample pricing, so you have an idea of what we're talking about here, as well as ending with, as mentioned before, some Q&A. So UV lighting. What is UV lighting? UV lighting is part of the electromagnetic spectrum. It's just a shorter wavelength than the visible light spectrum. So it's just a bit shorter than violet light, a bit more energetic than violet light. Therefore, it's ultraviolet light. And it has special capacities for disinfection purposes. Again, that's beyond the scope of this webinar. But that UV, especially the UVC, which is one part of the wavelength of UV light, has been used for disinfection purposes for over 100 years. In 1903, for example, the Nobel Prize in Medicine was awarded to a doctor who was using UV light to treat bacterial infections. In 1909, the first major usage of UV light for water treatment was implemented in Marseille, France. So this is technology that's been used for a while. And before coronavirus hit, it was specifically most often used in HVAC systems, in water treatment, and in special operational areas, such as in surgical rooms, in testing stations, and research labs as well. And since coronavirus hit, UV has taken a bit of a resurgence in the news and in the public eye. So going around this image, just a few ideas here. So the top left, this is the New York MTA. It's a subway car in the New York City subway system using portable UV units to disinfect during non-operational hours. Top right, this is a UV robot being used in a Whole Foods Market store. Amazon is using it in select Whole Foods and in warehousing facilities for disinfection purposes. Bottom left is a prototype of a car by Hyundai, who wants to use UV light to disinfect cars between passenger uses. This will also be very useful for things like Uber or Lyft. And bottom right is actually something that happened before the coronavirus pandemic. This is a prototype of a Boeing airplane bathroom. And their idea here is to use strong powered UV light between uses to disinfect the quite honestly, the grimy space that is an airport. airplane, bathroom. And so there are many uses here, but when we talk about applying UV light for a facility that is one that has high foot traffic, one that does have, let's say it's a institution in our communities, such as our educational sectors, and one that does have very unique needs in terms of when people are in spaces and how many are passing through, then we need to think about a solution that is going to be flexible and is going to be safe. And that's where Pure UVC comes into place. Our system utilizes UVC technology. It's been around for, as you've seen, more than 100 years, with high-end lighting controls and app-based flexibility to provide a system that gets the best of all the worlds, where you get the 99.99% efficacy of UVC technology, with the flexibility of turning on the system whenever you need it, and to make sure that no one will ever be under the UVC lighting. So benefits of using UVC light, especially in this type of setting. So as mentioned before, efficacy. There's plenty of research out there showing 99.99% efficacy against airborne and surface pathogens. This includes COVID-19. So very effective. Essentially whatever the light touches will be disinfected. Next, safety. So a controlled system with the proper controls, with the proper sensors, with the proper safety redundancies will ensure that no one is under the lights. With UVC, there is the, let's say, health danger that we should and do need to be aware of, which is essentially the same as being under the sun for a exposed, duration. So that's going to include some skin burning and eye irritation if under the UVC light for a certain amount of time, for an extended period of time, and depending on, let's say, your skin type as well. Some people are more sensitive to the sun than others, so that's going to be the case here. That's why it is important to go and protect people from any exposure to UVC. And that's what's provided in the system. On the other hand, when using chemical treatments, especially at the quantity that's being requested nowadays by the CDC and some of these other governmental organizations, you get chemical fumes and vapors. There has been a spike in calls to the CDC Poison Control Center since March, since quarantine began, because of the fumes from the overuse of these products. So it's very important to mitigate use of those products as much as possible, and that's what UVC can provide. Facility friendly. So in order to go and disinfect, I'm not just saying clean, but disinfect surface area pathogens, but then also airborne pathogens as well on a daily basis, let's say between uses of even a smaller seminar room, that's going to require a lot of person power, and it's going to require a good amount of equipment that might be either incredibly expensive or just impossible to do with the limitations of time and with faculty availability. UVC, with its programming, will allow hands-off treatments whenever they need to be done. Future ready. So there is no discernment from UVC between pathogens. So UVC light treats the flu, treats colds, mold spores, bacteria, algae, even parasites. So this is an effective, let's say, part of the solution against COVID-19. It'll also remain just as viable, just as effective during the next flu season. During a bacterial outbreak, which we know in places like universities unfortunately happen on a semi-regular basis. And this will also be effective during the next epidemic or, God forbid, the next pandemic. Less waste. So it's going to be less bottles, less rags, less of the chemical cleanup. And also with a lot of the chemicals, even the bottles that they're stored in, they do need to be disposed of properly. You will not have to touch anything in the UVC system for at least 5 years, much closer to 10 to 12 years. And when that happens, it's just one bulb, which needs to be replaced and swapped by a new one. So over the lifetime of these bulbs, of these fixtures, much less waste, which gets into affordability as well. 5 to 10 year operation, very minimal added cost to utilities. When comparing this to the extra facilities, team members that need to be hired, when comparing this to the extra products, chemical products, and cleaning supplies that need to be purchased, and the independent contractors that need to be brought in for the deep disinfection, it's going to pay itself off in a very, very quick time. Depending on how robust of an implementation you're putting in, it could pay itself off in less than a year. So then we've been talking broadly about the solution, but what does the solution even look like in the first place? So it's going to be a facility-wide solution, which consists of installed fixtures and mobile units, mostly installed fixtures. UVC disinfection only occurs when spaces are unoccupied, incredibly important. And at this point, while 222 nanometer technology is not yet viable, it is a non-compromisable offering there. No one is to be under the UVC light. It does not interfere with existing systems. So there's going to be no interference with your AV system, with your lighting system, with anything there. We have our IntelliSafe app-based controls for our fixtures and some simple preset controls for our mobile units, meaning that there's flexibility and ease of use for all of our products that we provide you. And we utilize products, components, and manufacturers who are approved by the EPA, FCC, and UL. We need to go and ensure that you're comfortable and confident with your system. We need to ensure that whoever is backing your institution is comfortable and confident with your system. And we need to make sure that if you provide the system, that you're able to send it out to your student body. You're able to send it out to your student body's parents, to your community, to provide more confidence in your facility and to show that you're being proactive in the solution. So therefore, we take the extra time to make sure everything is regulated and certified and of high quality before we provide it to you. In terms of our IntelliSafe Controls, these are a pioneering app-based control system that combines the best of flexibility with safety. So in terms of flexibility, you have customized presets, which allow you to have these fixtures operating pretty much on whatever schedule you would like. That might mean different things on different days. It means different things during different semesters. It provides a lot of different flexibility, which we'll go through as we talk about different solutions here. In addition to that, we provide regular updates. So as we get more information from clients, from customers, as we continue to advance our technology with the latest and greatest in terms of offerings, you're going to get automatic updates to your apps, which will allow you to go and bring in those latest advancements. And in terms of safety features, we have astronomic clock built into the fixtures. This means that 2 o'clock across campus is the same 2 o'clock. It also means that your fixtures are operating together in one cohesive way. Smart sensors. This is high-end occupancy sensors. If someone is in the room, the fixture will not turn on. Manual override. Through the app and through wall switches, you're allowed to manually turn the system on or off for authorized users only. Sound activation. Now, this is part of our safety redundancy. We want to be as careful as possible, layer upon layer upon layer upon layer of safety to make sure that everyone in the facility remains safe. So what sound activation is if the fixtures are activated, there will be a sound that is emitted from the fixtures. It's actually a voice recording, which notifies occupants in the room that the fixtures have been activated and notifies them to exit the room. So God forbid somehow these other parts of our safety redundancies don't work, then the people inside that room will know, system's on, leave the room, call facility management, call us, and we'll go and take care of it. Continuing on with some of these safety redundancies, we have fixtures will deactivate as default. Our fixtures are specially designed that if there's a bad contact, if the controls aren't registering properly, the fixtures will turn off. Again, you notify us and we'll provide you a solution. And finally, it's not included here, but we have flash memory built into our fixtures. So that means you do not need to have a UPC built into your, UPS built into your uh, solution here. That means that if the power goes out, the fixtures are going to be reading what they were using before. So that also means that if the power goes out, you are not in trouble. So again, flexibility and safety. And just a overview of our products. We do have much more than this. Oftentimes we do develop custom based on our customers. But as you see, it's just a general idea where we'll provide fixtures that are going to match the style of your facility. We are in the process of releasing an architectural line. So there are beautiful fixtures that can be used in lobbies, foyers, or those big, beautiful common areas you have in your facilities. All right, so because I do want to get into the room by room solution, I'm going to just very quickly go over this. If you have questions about working with us, we can do that in the Q&A, or we can do that via email later. But we'll be with you the whole ride to make sure that your facility is well taken care of. Let's get into the interesting part here. So different solutions for different types of rooms and spaces in your university. So number one, lecture hall. So this is going to be, let's say, our bread and butter solution. This is our most standard solution. So the IntelliSafe controls are pre-programmed for nightly disinfection. So that means every evening you lock the doors, no one's inside that space, and the fixtures go on. Customized schedules can be simply programmed per lecture hall. So if you want to disinfect between chemistry lecture and between World History 101 lecture, you'll be able to arrange that as well. Again, UVC disinfection only occurs if the room is unoccupied. It'll take about 1 to 2 hours for a comprehensive disinfection. That means bacteria, viruses, mold spores, and all sorts of pathogens. It'll take only about 30 to 60 minutes for a comprehensive germicidal and antiviral effect. It might even take less than that depending on how many fixtures you put in, but that is a nice maximum to consider at this point. And so the same exact type of solution can work in a classroom or seminar room, inside the offices, inside your facility, and even inside common areas which are closed at some point during the day. Same idea with fitness centers. If they are open at this point, to go and allow some time during the day or night to allow the fitness centers to close for disinfection purposes. Next up, restrooms. I know that there is, let's say, a guidance from the CDC asking universities and colleges to try their best to disinfect restrooms between uses. To do that manually is going to require a facilities manager, facilities member, to essentially act as a bouncer outside of every restroom. Once someone walks in and exits to close the restroom, that's going to mean with the high foot traffic of a university that restrooms are more often closed than open. And that means that you're going to spread your facilities team incredibly thin to do so. So on that side, to comply with that guideline, an automated system will be highly beneficial. And so in that case, you'd have permanently installed fixtures over the most at-risk areas, including stalls and sinks. High-end occupancy sensors and additional levels of safety measures ensure that disinfection only occurs when the bathroom is unoccupied. Even that means if someone is sitting in a stall for an extended period of time, unfortunately in universities that might happen. We won't go into the reason why that might happen. And what this system allows is daily and between use treatments. So again, you can have this going on a regular basis where the fixtures themselves, they'll operate while whichever one happens first. Either full disinfection occurs or someone new walks into the restroom. So again, a very potent solution there. And this same idea can be used in some other aspects inside of your facility. So same idea in entranceways. So entrances to dorms, to buildings, to whatever it might be, where the system goes on between entrances, or maybe the system is only operational during times when movement in and out of the facility are very minimal. I do know that most universities have 24/7 foot traffic, but there are times during the evening and during the very early morning when foot traffic is very minimal. So it might be a nice time to have this operational for a 4-hour window, let's say 1 to 5 a.m. But if anyone walks into the area, the fixtures turn off and that person can safely walk through. Next up, meeting rooms. So this is, for example, the little nooks that you have in libraries as study rooms. This might be individual offices, areas that are rented out, whatever it might be. So option one is a scheduled solution. So same idea as the lecture hall, where meeting rooms are only by schedule and the fixtures are turned on between scheduled sessions. The sensors that are built into the fixtures make sure that no fixture is going to turn on if a meeting runs late or begins early. Number two is the same idea as the restroom solution. So the fixtures are programmed to be on. If there is a study group inside the room, the fixtures will turn off. And once they leave, they'll turn back on again after a few minutes at least of verifying that the room is empty. Now, another thing I want to show you about this image, which is interesting. Now, this image is a mock-up just for educational purposes here. But if you notice, the fixtures are on here inside of a common area. Now, what's beautiful is that most every window, most glass is treated against UV. That means that you can have this fixture on and you just need a glass partition to allow people to be operating outside of it. So in a facility like this, in this example like this, a UV application would be absolutely perfect. Next up, health services. So it allows regular disinfection to be programmed during non-working hours. So again, late at night. And then also IntelliSafe Controls and Custom Switch allow for on-demand disinfection. So let's forget about coronavirus for a moment here. Let's say it's flu time. And a student goes to health services, checks out that he or she has a fever, and the whoever's working in the health services area wants to make sure that the space is disinfected. Well, that person, once the room empties, presses the antiviral button on their touch panel, walks out, comes back about 10 minutes later, and the room is clear of those pathogens. Now, one thing I do want to mention is our fixtures are not medical grade. We do not sell to hospitals. These are not intended for that. So this is not intended for your health, let's say, your on-site hospital. But if it is your equivalent to the nurse's office, a place where, again, the health services, it is a good solution. And this is a similar idea to research labs. Research labs historically do use this technology on a regular basis. So very simple application there. Now, hallways or pass-throughs. So this is our corridors, our areas between classrooms. Couple options. Option A is permanent install fixtures. This is the more robust solution. This is a solution that does not require so much hands-on work. The one problem here is that it does get a little bit pricey. So if your budget allows, or you do see the, let's say, savings that the solution will offer, then that's the preferred solution. Otherwise, mobile units are good for long open corridors. The only con here is that it requires manual placement and it will require closures of the area and or partitions. Regardless, we can work with you to make sure that you have the proper solution. Same idea for large spaces. So thinking about your gyms, right? So you have mobile units that go in, are allowed to disinfect the area. Those are usually areas that you can close off for some time, and it'll take about 30 to 60 minutes for comprehensive disinfection. It might require multiple units based on the size. We'll be able to provide you that based on estimates there. And again, needs to be operated during times when the space is evacuated. So again, same idea in dining halls, in common areas, in foyers or lobbies, all different places where that can be a good operation. Now, as we round up this, there's a few places that the solution is not recommended. First off, it's not recommended in libraries, especially libraries housing old books. For those old books, UV light, just like sunlight, because UV light is sunlight, does begin to diminish and tarnish the ink inside the books. And so it's going to cause a fading effect. It's one of the reasons why the libraries, such as this one pictured from a Dublin library, are oftentimes dark and use very limited lighting for that. Another place we do not recommend is inside dorm rooms. In common areas, sure, but inside dorm rooms, there's just too much risk for tampering in that case, and you can't really know what the kids are going to be doing. Again, I went to engineering school. If I had one of these units inside my dorm room, I'm sure myself and my friend would be picking them apart and trying our best to make them work in the way that they're not supposed to work. Continuing on-site medical facilities, we already mentioned that. And then also lobbies and buildings with high ceilings and 24/7 high occupancy movement. I know that sounds incredibly specific, but when you think about your facilities, it's not so specific. So it's going to be places that have a lot of foot traffic, places where it's not really easy to mount a fixture, and places where it's not really easy to close off areas for an extended period of time to do disinfection. Of course, you could put in mobile units here, but for some of these facilities and areas, it might be better to do a manual disinfection or to do, again, partitioned mobile unit UVC treatments. So again, this is a review of what we went through before. I'm going to just more or less skip through. We can talk more about it in Q&A if you want to work with us, but I'm already over time and want to get here. So this is some sample project pricing. It's very hard to provide sample project pricing for a college or university because every college and university is going to be specific, and there's going to be a specific plan of attack for every project. We have some clients that are only doing their bathrooms. We have some clients that are only doing certain facilities inside their, or certain rooms inside their spaces. We have some clients which are only doing certain buildings. So all different types of solutions will require different types of project scopes. But as an overall place to get started, thinking about a standard classroom or seminar room that's around 1,000 square feet will cost about $2,100. That includes 2 lights and 1 switch. It's going to include all the bulbs as well. Then you have a small building, about 40,000 square feet. It's going to be about $55K. A medium building, about 100,000 square feet at $125K. And a larger building at about 150,000 square feet, about $190K. Again, very minimal rise to utilities. It's literally fluorescent technology here. And you won't have to touch a bulb for at least 5 to 10 years, depending on how often the fixtures are used. Most likely around 10 to 12 years, you won't have to touch a replacement. And when you do, the replacement costs only about, at this point, bulbs are $45 a bulb. So at that point, it really won't be too much of an additional cost. Beautiful. So as we end off here, we often talk about the new normal. So the new normal is what we're doing to make sure that our facilities, our common spaces, our public spaces are safer now than they have ever been before. And so with this, by bringing in this technology, by considering this technology, already you are implementing and bringing in ideas that are going to serve in that new normal. So I do appreciate you being on this webinar. I do look forward to answering the questions that we already have building. And I hope that you're able to reopen your universities, your colleges safely, effectively, and for the betterment of your students and staff. If you want to join for any additional webinars, we have our intro level one is tomorrow at 2. We do it every other week. So the next one will be on the 6th at 11 a.m. Then we have the truth about chemical disinfectants Thursday at 8:13 at 2 p.m. That one we will go into some of the dangers of overusing chemical treatments. And we have this webinar, which is currently being recorded, as well as Pure UVC for K-12 recordings coming soon to our website. So thank you very much for attending. I will turn this over to Q&A at this point. Again, please use that Q&A module if you have questions.